What's going on, football fans? It's me, JR Clark, back again with another Pound for Pound ATL. As always, I'm joined by my main man, Toby D. And we got another breakdown type video today. Not really going to be showing any plays per se in motion, but a couple weeks ago we started building, I guess you could say, what the offense should look like by our estimations. And we started with the quarterbacks. We took a look at some of the, types of routes and plays that were run that they did well on and that they were successful with, and things that we should be implementing here in Atlanta. We did Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder. And then, Toby, you did an amazing job on that, highlighting the importance of the first down conversions in your latest video. And I encourage anybody, if y'all haven't watched that, y'all need to take the time to watch that, because that was a very good and enlightening video on how this game plan should go, as far as trying to stay out of those third and longs, the importance of, converting first downs, either chain movers, 10-yard chunks, or converting them from second down to first down. So I thought that was a very well done video, and I appreciate your efforts there on that one, because that's something I don't think a lot of people talk about too much. Well, today we're going to jump into two of our newest targets. Now, obviously, Kyle Pitts is the offense is probably going to run through him more so this year than it even did last year. But unlike last year, we have two new targets to throw to, which is Drake London and Bryan Edwards. So, Toby, you want to set the stage a little bit for what we're trying to look at tonight?
Man, I'll tell you what, man, it feels good when you have guys that can run similar routes, right? Because that means within any concept, they can be moved anywhere and run the routes that are going to be required and necessary, and have been some of our most popular routes last year. A lot of people probably weren't paying attention to that, but just starting out talking about that deep corner route, man, that they ran a lot last year. It was money for them. And everybody could run it. Olamedi Zaccheaus, Kyle Pitts, all the way to Russell Gage. All of those guys were able to run it. But I do remember one time, the first time they did it, unfortunately, Calvin Ridley in that Eagles game in the first week ran a nice corner route, but ended up dropping the ball. But other than that, you saw it in week 3, right. Kyle Pitts, that first big play that he caught that corner route on to really get things going before the end of the game, to kind of help them, lead them to winning that game ultimately. But them deep corners was crazy. So we want to talk about some of these routes, man, that they had a lot of success with, and we think that they're going to roll over for Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder to have success in.
Right. And so to start off with, I want to start off with looking at some interesting stuff for Drake London. Now, there was a quote in an article. I put it out on Twitter, but I'm going to go ahead and put that same quote up here on screen. It says, London's success rate versus man and press scores aren't too dissimilar from Jamar Chase. He finished with a 73.2% success rate versus man and a 71.8% success rate versus zone or press coverage. And he was also compared favorably, y'all can read the quote on the screen, that he was compared favorably to even Calvin Ridley as far as his success rate versus zone coverage. So a lot of people want to talk about London's lack of overall speed, but London wins in a lot of different ways. Now I'm going to put up this chart that I just put up is from the website called Reception Perception. And I find these charts to be very handy about what these wide receivers can do. And you were talking about that corner route. Now, London doesn't seem to be, at least his time in USC, favor the corner route. But he had a good amount of success against the with the 9 route. He ran the 9 route, that go route, 21% of the time, and had 63% success on it. Now, where he was extremely successful was curl routes, slant routes, and flat routes. And when you look at stuff like this, you start to see the bigger picture. And what I mean by that is these are the type of routes that Coach Smith likes to run. And we're going to throw some diagrams up here in a minute of some different formations that are going to kind of highlight that. So I also want to bring up Bryan Edwards because I want to paint the picture here of why we drafted London and why we traded for Edwards. Now, Edwards had he didn't run it often. He only ran it 3.4%. But in that 3%, he had a 75% success rate with that corner route that you were just talking about. Mm-hmm. So, Edwards could be your corner guy. But as you talked about at the top of the show, the similarities of the routes that they can run, his success rate with the curl routes and the dig routes and the comebacks were all high marks. He just didn't get a ton of reps to do it. So you can...
Yeah.
By looking at these charts, you can really see what the team saw in Edwards in trading for him.
Yeah, I really liked having these guys because you see the reason why, like you said, why you went out and got them, and they fit well with Kyle Pitts, who can run every route that you need him to run, and that's necessary, and you saw him run it, right? So now you go out of here and you add these two guys in there with him and Olamedi Zaccheaus. A lot of people sleep on Olamedi, but Olamedi also was able to run any route that you need him to run within the route concept.
Right. And something that I like in preparation for doing, this particular show, I started digging into Zaccheaus. I reached out to Reception Perception about maybe a chart for Zaccheaus. But they said they hadn't gotten to him yet, which is understandable. Not a very big name. Didn't have a ton of targets last year. But the one thing I found interesting is you realize that Zaccheaus spent more time in the out wide than he did in the slot.
No, I didn't realize
that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, no, it was something that I did not expect to see. Like when I started looking at his numbers, I fully expected to see him being lined up in the slot because that's what you expect out of a 5'8", 190-pound guy. But he spent more time out wide than he did in the slot. And I wonder if that, lends to the fact that they want to run with that more of a power slot, type of guy. Somebody who can, bully people inside at a higher rate. Because one thing... Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was saying, going back again, like what we were just talking about, you got guys that are interchangeable. Mm-hmm. So now you have guys that can run any route you need, and depending on the matchups, you can put them anywhere and should be able to benefit getting better favorable matchups because they're able to run all the routes within the route concept that we believe they're going to carry over for Mariota and Desmond Ridder to have success in 2022.
And another thing that we haven't necessarily talked about as of yet, and we'll probably get into more when we get into the running back video that we're probably going to do before we get into training camp, is you now have wide receivers who can block.
Right.
Like you now have, if Auden Tate makes the team, we talk about their size all the time as far as catching goes, but Bryan Edwards, his time at the Raiders, he graded out favorably in run blocking both years he was there. Yeah. And he had games where he had elite blocking. Like, that plays into a factor as well. If you want to run this outside zone stuff, you've got to have wide receivers that can move people.
Yeah.
And I believe you got that now in Drake London and Bryan Edwards. Both of those have shown to be more than willing blockers.
Yeah, and we saw that in 2015 when we didn't quite have what we needed with Kyle Shanahan. And then when 2016 we went out and ended up getting Mohamed Sanu and seeing what he came in there and brought. And you need guys that not only block, but they love to do it. And when you watch Bryan Edwards, he relishes blocking.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he gets all up in it. Like, he ain't got no problems displacing, a slot corner or a safety or, even taking on linebackers. So, he got no problem with it whatsoever. Well, man, let's get into some of the things that I think these people are here for. I want to get into some of these plays, some of these formations. And I want to start off with something that I've seen a little bit more, from what we've seen the clips, and that's the bunch formation. This is a Trip Spots dig, and I pulled that dig up because of the success of Bryan Edwards. and what he was able to have on that dig. But in these three formations that you that I got put up on the screen, the main elements is that you have that corner route and you have that dig route.
Mm-hmm.
Now, paired that up with, a couple of hitches from, I could see the hitches being, Kyle Pitts and Zaccheaus. Or because of the interchangeability, you could even have, Pitts in the middle of that spot section and have him running that dig.
Oh man, I'm getting excited about the possibility.
Right, and that's like, and I'm going to show a different one here. There's a couple different variations of this, trip spots dig, but the main concepts are the dig route from one of the two receivers who are close to the formation, and then a corner route from one of the wides. Like those are the two main forms, and I could see that easily being, a favorite of Drake London running a 9 or running that corner route, or Bryan Edwards running that dig route. They both have had success with both of those routes.
Now, I would like to interject real quick and say something about those 9 routes, right? Because a lot of people would look at that and think it's a straight up go where you just blowing the top off the defense. That's not always what 9 routes are, depending on the wide receivers. We know these guys will probably run a sub, 4.6. Right. It's not the speediest, but what they do have is they do have the height, and they are able to make adjustments to the deep ball without having to necessarily blow the top off the defense. So you got to keep that in mind when we start talking about how high a percentage or success that both him and Edwards had based on those charts. On the 9 route doesn't always mean they got to blow the top off the defense.
Exactly. And that's something that, I think a lot of people, I wish I would have pulled the tweet that me and you were sending back and forth about the percentage of, routes that are run. Like the highest percentage routes run are like in-breaking slant routes, and the lowest percentage is a go route. But a go route in the NFL is a lot like a home run, in baseball. You love to see it, but more times than not, you're winning off of base hits and moving guys around the base path that way. But, home runs are what everybody gets excited about. And that's the same deal with go routes. If you really sit and study, KC and Patrick Mahomes, everybody loves Mahomes, but the vast majority of the throws are, 4 and 5 yards downfield, 3 or 4 yards past the line of scrimmage. And then the guy's catching the ball and running, very not very rarely, but the percentage wise is much lower that Mahomes is, dropping back and hooking it 50, 60 yards downfield. That's what sticks in our mind, but that's not the majority of the play. Yeah. Now, one of the plays that you want to talk about was the dragon play. Woo-hoo! So yes, I got the dragon formation put up on screen. So I want you to talk about that dragon a little bit.
So I saw the Atlanta Falcons run this against the Miami Dolphins when they played them last year, right? Okay. And this is what made me that diagram is similar where you got 3 guys on one side running slants, and then you got another guy, the X, if you want to call him, running a slant in breaking slant on the other side. So you got 4 guys running slant routes, right? Now, they didn't hit on that route. But here's the beautiful thing about this. When you got guys like Drake London, Bryan Edwards, Kyle Pitts, and Olamedi Zaccheaus who are great running slant routes. I mean, now we laughed about Michael Thomas, right? Because we always called him slant king.
Right.
But if you look at that chart, and we don't have the chart up, but I think slant routes were the second most run route in the NFL last year in 2021, and screens was number one, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I believe you're right.
So now you got Kyle Pitts, who was already dominating that. You're going to hit somebody, and they're going to get upfield probably for another 20 yards before they even get hit running these dragon routes, right? Yep. So that's why I'm so excited about this. I think it's time to stop laughing at Michael Thomas now, because we may see us running a lot of slant routes that we probably didn't realize we were running last season.
And I think that's a true statement. We poke fun at Michael Thomas for the 5-yard slant that he ran. But I mean, it was so effective.
Yeah.
And we made fun of it in a way because of how effective it was. He didn't need to do anything else.
Right.
Because he was able to convert those first downs. He was able to get those touchdowns. Why do you need to do anything else if it's working? And with Arthur Smith in here, that's his calling card. Are those slants or that high-low, slant concept. Yeah. So now the second one, or my second play that I think should be, and I say I think it should be incorporated. I feel like it's going to be incorporated in the open portion of that practice that they had down at Mercedes-Benz. I watched them, practice this concept, and it was a concept that everybody accused Arthur Smith. I say accused, said this is all he ran. But when I went back and watched film from last year, we didn't actually run a lot of this. We ran a lot of crossing routes, but we didn't run a lot of true mesh routes. Mesh is where you're much closer to each other. You can almost high five as you're passing across each other, right? So I'm pulling the diagram up now, and that is the concept. It's about 4 or 5 yards downfield. You're, whether it's, if you're running it from, I got 2 variations here. One is run from a bunch and one is run from a 2x2. And I think that 2x2 set is going to be far more important if Ritter makes the start, if and when Ritter makes starts, because a lot of the concepts that Cincinnati ran were out of 2x2 formations. So that would be something that he's comfortable with running. So in this 2x2, you have, these 2 guys running that shallow crosser where they pretty much are close enough to high five. And that's something that, like I said, we watched them run. This one diagram has, the running back coming out of the backfield, which could easily be Cordero Patterson or Damon Williams. And then you have the, in the bunch formation variation, you have them running like another dig route, coming out at the deeper side of it. So these are the routes that should be easily incorporated into this into this playbook that the Falcons are building, that they should end up having a fair amount of success with. Because something that I've noticed, and I don't know if I'm one to coin the phrase, I know I've been saying it a lot. Arthur Smith really is wanting defenders to have to run through mud to cover his guys. Between motions, condensed formations, and formation, plays such as meshes and shallow crossers and stuff like that. Like, he really wants these defenses to have to run into or around each other to create space. And I think you finally have guys who are going to be able to capitalize on that because of their physicality as well.
So I'm about to throw something in there right quick on the mesh routes, right? A lot of people probably didn't pay attention to this, but we ran a lot of whip routes. So what you do with those shallow crosses, you go back to that Philadelphia Eagles game week 1, you'll see it. And you might remember your boy Mike Davis ran a post wheel route and was wide open. And this is the one where you saw really run a whip route, and on the other side they ran a whip route as well. Mm-hmm. It was still a mesh, but instead of them running the crosses, they switched it up and ran a whip. So if you look in the book, in the Chicago book, it's exactly the same mesh concept. You'll see it in there with the 2 whips.
Right.
They actually ran that concept, and Davis caught the football, and your boy messed around and got a penalty trying to bump somebody instead of completing his whip.
Right.
And so we saw a lot last year where a lot of the guys, especially Olamedi Zaccheaus, they ran a lot of whip routes. So it's sometimes when you look at the meshes, they'll change it up into whips instead, depending on how they're being played.
Right. And that's that's the beautiful thing about a lot of these things that we're showing here. There's a bunch of different formations or a bunch of different variations of the same concepts that you can build off of and make it to where one word changes an entire formation, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, one of the last one we have is your last one here, and that's the sprint out. concept. So I'm going to throw it up on screen if you want to talk about it some.
So here's what I like about the sprint out. And I was surprised to see Matt Ryan running it last year. The New Orleans game, he ran this.
Mm-hmm.
And all you're doing is you're in a shotgun. It's a way to move the pocket and to keep the quarterback, moving. Depending on where you are, if you're on the left side of the running back, you're just gonna sprint over to the left side and hit your wide receiver on a quick hitch route. And this is what he did with Russell Gage. He hit him on a nice hitch route, and they ended up getting a first down. And these are ways to get quick first downs, converting them and keep the quarterback up and keep the pocket moving. And that's why I like these sprint outs, because I believe they fit Marcus Mariota and they fit Desmond Ridder at the same time. And also what you can do with these, you can use them play action rollout plays that we talked about with Desmond Ridder. You can make it look like that. And so it's so much stuff that you can do now when you have a mobile quarterback out of the shotgun and disguise so many things, draw plays, QB draw.
Oh yeah, there's a
stuff,
lot
man.
that you can do.
Yeah, no sprint outs would be great.
Right, and to echo on that sprint out, with especially if Desmond Ridder ends up in the start, he is, like, from what I saw, he is far more comfortable when it's a designed quarterback move on the move than he is when the play absolutely breaks down and he has to scramble and throw. Like he throws well on the run when that's what he's supposed to be doing. But when it's the whole, like, everything's falling apart, I have to run around and make a play, I don't know if he's necessarily as good as we think he is there. He could prove me wrong. But stuff like, those play action boots and those sprint outs, I think fit him to a T for sure.
Yeah.
And obviously they fit Mariota as well. I think that's something that both of them can benefit from on a regular basis. So, yeah, I mean, I think, looking at the charts for both Edwards and, London, you can easily see why they went out and got these guys.
Yeah.
I would love to have seen the chart to see if some of the things that we're looking at also reflect on Zaccheaus' chart, because it wouldn't surprise me one bit if he was also, had high marks on corner routes and slants, and because that's what they seem to want to build the offense. If we're looking at the types of plays that the quarterbacks are good at throwing, the types of plays that the receivers, and this includes Pitts, that are good at running, it seems like you're really having a combination of a lot of slants, a lot of corners, and a lot of digs. Now,
and I think your boy London had a high success rate with the screen passes too, didn't he?
He did. Let me see if I can pull it back up. I covered you up, so everybody don't get mad. Let's see, screen games. Yes, he had. Let's look at how many times he ran it. He ran the screens 11.2% of the time, and had 100% success rate. And that was something towards the end of the season last year. They started running a lot more screens.
Yeah, especially with Cordell Patterson.
Right.
He had a lot of success running.
So if we can get, Drake London to be like a screen and a potential slot monster, we could be singing the praises of London in a lot of different ways. And it might not be just, because he's a contested catch guy. He's a contested catch guy, but they didn't draft him, as high as they did to be just a contested catch guy. And long gone, in a sense, to me, are the days of a full-on X and a full-on Z and a full-on slot receiver. Yeah. No, we're trying to play matchups, man. It's matchups, and it's trying to put my guys in the more favorable spaces to succeed.
Yeah.
So with guys who favor each other in the way that, Edwards and London and even Pitts do, you can move them all over the place. Yeah. And good luck trying to key in on what they're wanting to do by where they're lined up at.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they can run any of these routes in any concept at any time. And because of the concepts are so the way these routes are aligned, you can mix them up in other concepts as well. And that dig can be mixed in just about any
That's it.
concept across the board.
Right. You can have like just about any concept, just about any formation. You can run a dig and a slant. Like
Yeah.
those are, we're going to laugh and chuckle, but those are going to be mainstays. And it looks like, it appears, at least on paper, that you got guys who are going to benefit from those type of plays, guys who can handle, boxing out somebody with their body, or taking some shots per se. So, well, man, that's I think wraps it up for this particular episode. I hope that we have given y'all something to think on, something to go study, and something to go look at, because this offense it's going to look interesting for sure. It is definitely going to look interesting. As always, y'all can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Grim1128, GRIMM1128. Toby?
Toby D 1991.
For all your merch and Patreon wants, links are in the bio. Y'all see the cool hat. If you like it, maybe we start making some of these. I don't know. Like, I'm the one that's putting them together, so if I start selling them, it'll be in a different way. It won't be through a website. It'll be through you, like, sending us money and me mailing it to you, if you trust that. But we'll figure all that out. I may try to see if there's something we can do about throwing a page up on the website. But anyway, man, Toby, I appreciate you. Appreciate you taking your time. I appreciate that video you did. And yeah, keep your eye on the channel, because we got more coming. As always, Falcons fans, rise up.
Rise up.